My name is Ella Washington, and I was 32 years old when I learned that in my family, ownership only counted until someone else decided they needed it more. The letter arrived on a Thursday morning. Not certified, not dramatic, just a plain white envelope mixed in with grocery ads and a dentist reminder I'd been avoiding for 6 months. I remember because I almost threw it out without opening it. Something about good news has always felt suspicious to me. Like if I look at it too closely, it'll realize it was sent to the wrong person. I stood in the kitchen barefoot, the fridge humming like it was clearing its throat. There was a cow-shaped magnet holding up an old takeout menu from a place that closed 3 years ago. I tore the envelope open carefully, like it might bite. Mortgage. Paid in full. I reread it. Then again. Then once more, slower, mouthing the words like a language I didn't trust yet. Paid. Full. No confetti. No music. No one burst through the door cheering. Just me, the hum of the fridge, and a piece of paper confirming that the thing I'd been working toward for almost a decade was finally done. I leaned back against the counter and laughed once. Quiet, almost embarrassed. Like maybe I wasn't supposed to react too loudly in case the universe overheard and changed its mind. Because when you grow up waiting for the rug to be pulled out, even solid ground feels temporary. That condo cost me everything I had that wasn't nailed down. No vacations for years. I learned to smile at other people's beach photos while counting grocery receipts like they were classified documents. My car was old enough to vote and made a noise every time it started that sounded like a personal insult. I fixed my own plumbing using YouTube tutorials filmed by men named Gary who called every step super easy. While my sink leaked like it had opinions, I worked freelance gigs at night. Food delivery on weekends. I said no to brunches, birthdays, spontaneous trips. While my friends were collecting passport stamps, I was collecting screenshots of bank balances and telling myself this mattered more. And it did. It still does. The condo itself wasn't fancy. 2 bedrooms in Chicago. Old appliances that beeped aggressively when nothing was wrong. Floors that squeaked in places like they were gossiping about me. The second bedroom was half storage, half office. Boxes stacked next to a desk I'd bought secondhand and fixed myself. Every dent in the wall had a story. Every flaw was paid for. It was mine, or so I thought. The following Tuesday, Natalie showed up unannounced. I heard the door before I saw her, keys jangling like she'd always had permission. She walked in holding a giant iced coffee, condensation dripping onto my floor, and didn't say hello. Didn't ask how I was. Just scanned the room like she was evaluating square footage. She walked straight past me, checked the second bedroom, opened the bathroom door, peeked into the office closet like she expected to find a secret. "This place is bigger than I remember," she said finally, with a thoughtful nod. Something in my chest tightened. Then she dropped it. "We've agreed this should be a family place now." I laughed. A strange, awkward sound that slipped out before my brain caught up. I looked around the living room like maybe I'd missed the hidden ballroom, the extra wing, the surprise guest house. "What?" I said. Natalie took a sip of her coffee, unfazed. "Mom and Dad think it makes sense. You don't really need all this space. Mark's hours got cut, daycare's insane, and you're just here. Alone." Each sentence landed heavier than the last. "You're being a little selfish," she added, like she was explaining a traffic rule. Selfish? My smile froze. Confusion drained into something colder, sharper. "And we'd need to be in by the end of next month," she finished, already checking her phone. I straightened. "This isn't a family home. Bought it. I paid for it." She waved a hand. "That's just a technicality. You don't even use the second bedroom. We've already talked to Mom and Dad. It's best for everyone." Then softer. "Mugger. You'll understand once you have kids." She left with a confident smile. Like the decision had already been made. I stood there after the door closed, the fridge groaning behind me like it was exhausted too. My eyes drifted back to the mortgage letter still sitting on the counter. Did I imagine this? My mind kept circling one phrase. "Family place." I called Caleb and told him everything. He didn't interrupt. When I finished, he said quietly, "Ella, that's not normal. That's not okay." And for the first time, I wondered if the thing I'd spent my whole life accepting as normal never actually was. Natalie was 4 years younger. The golden child. It wasn't something anyone ever said out loud. It didn't need to be. Families like mine run on implication, not honesty. You learn the hierarchy early. The same way you learn which floorboards creak and which doors you're not supposed to close too hard. Teachers loved Natalie. They called her bright and creative and sensitive. When she forgot an assignment, it was because she was overwhelmed. When she talked back, it was confidence. When she cried, the room bent around her. When I brought home a B instead of an A, my mother's first question wasn't "How do you feel?" It was, "What did you do wrong?" Neighbors praised Natalie's piano recitals, her dance lessons, her summer camps. I mowed lawns and babysat so I could afford school supplies without asking. Natalie was encouraged to focus on school. I was told money was tight when my car needed repairs. That same year, my parents paid for Natalie's prom dress without blinking. When it came time for college, the pattern didn't even pretend to hide. Natalie went to a private university. My parents co-signed her loans like it was a formality. I went to a state school on scholarships, worked part-time, then full-time, then whatever time was left. Early mornings, late nights, classes sandwiched between shifts. I learned how to stretch $1 until it screamed. Then no one ever called it unfair. They called it different needs. I called it survival. Years later, when I bought the condo, Natalie came to see it once. She walked through slowly, arms crossed, eyes scanning like she was evaluating a hotel room she wouldn't book. "It's cozy," she said, smiling thinly. "I could never live somewhere like this, but good for you." I laughed then. Took it as a compliment because that's what scapegoats are trained to do. Translate condescension into praise so no one accuses you of being difficult. At the time, Natalie's life looked charmed. She married Mark, a nice, quiet middle school science teacher. They rented a newer 3-bedroom apartment with a gym and a rooftop deck. Everything my place wasn't. Then they had a baby. Photos everywhere. Mail. Matching pajamas. And then reality showed up without knocking. Daycare costs hit. Mark's hours were cut. Natalie quit her part-time job, temporarily. Suddenly, the condo she'd once dismissed wasn't small anymore. It was available. That's when the calls started. First came my mom, early in the morning, her voice syrupy soft. The tone she used when disappointment was wearing a costume. "Family helps family," she said. "You have more than you need. Think of the baby." Later that day my dad called. Same speech. Different delivery. Less sugar, more authority. By lunchtime. A distant aunt I hadn't spoken to in years texted me like we'd been close all along. "I heard you might be struggling with a decision." Flying monkeys, fully deployed. It wasn't subtle. It wasn't accidental. It was coordinated. That's when it clicked. This wasn't about sharing. This was about control. For the first time in my life, I felt something harden in my chest. Not fear. Not guilt. Something solid that I wasn't a kid anymore. I wasn't under their roof. Paid my own bills. Owned my home. I'd earned every inch of it, and I wasn't giving it up. Not this time. The invitation came Friday afternoon. "Everyone will be there," my mom said. "We'll talk calmly." I knew what that meant. Calmly meant together. Together meant outnumbered. My phone buzzed non-stop for the next 2 days. Natalie sent long messages about how it would be temporary. My dad left voicemails about the big picture. My mom told me I was being tense and that no one was attacking me. My nerves felt like live wires. Caleb offered to come with me. I shook my head. "Not yet," I said. "I need to do this myself." Sunday evening, I pulled up to my parents' house. It looked exactly the same as it always had. And walking inside felt like stepping backward in time. My parents' house smelled the same as it always had. Dust, old carpet, and something vaguely burnt from a meal cooked too long out of obligation. The wallpaper in the hallway was peeling at the corners, curling like it wanted to escape. The couch still sank in the middle, a permanent dip where my dad sat every night and refused to replace because it still works. It felt like stepping backward in time. The dining table was already set when I walked in. 2 set. Plates aligned. Napkins folded. Natalie and Mark were seated on one side. shoulders angled inward, a united front. Natalie's hand rested on a thick folder like it belonged to her. Mark stared down at the grain of the table, tracing invisible lines with his eyes. My parents hovered instead of sitting, exchanging glances like nervous stagehands waiting for a cue. No one asked if I wanted a drink. Natalie smiled first. We've been talking, and we really think this makes sense. For a year, she added quickly. Maybe less. She slid the folder toward the center of the table and opened it. Pages filled with neat columns, clean charts, numbers rounded optimistically. Rent listed as 0. Utilities cut in half. No fees. No maintenance. No repairs. It read like the condo ran on good intentions instead of money. I stared at it. You'd cover utilities. Natalie blinked. Obviously. That's it. My mom leaned forward. Honey, it's temporary. Think of the baby. She needs her own room. I looked at Natalie. You rent a 3-bedroom now. Natalie's smile tightened. It's too expensive. Then get a smaller place. She sighed like I was being deliberately slow. Why should we uproot everything when you have space just sitting there unused? There was unused, like a shelf, like a spare chair, like a thing that existed only in relation to her need. I felt the room tilt, just slightly. I looked up your lease. Natalie froze. Court records are public, I continued, my voice steadier than I felt. 3 months rent penalty for early termination. Mark's jaw clenched. Natalie snapped the folder shut. That's none of your business. You're making it my business, I said. You want to move into my home to avoid paying penalties on yours. Just say that. My mom looked between us, confused. Natalie, is that true? Natalie waved a hand. We just need a fresh start. She turned back to me, eyes sharp now. You don't even use the 2nd bedroom. It's just sitting there while we're drowning. And whose fault is that? I asked. Her hand slammed onto the table. Plates rattled. We're family. Family also respects boundaries, I said. You don't get to decide my home isn't mine because you made bad financial choices. My dad finally stepped in. Let's calm down. No, I said. My heart was pounding, but my voice didn't shake. You all came here ready to guilt me into giving up my home. I'm not doing it. Natalie leaned back, eyes narrowing. So you'd rather see us homeless? You're not homeless, I said. You have a lease. You have options. Just not mine. I stood, grabbed my jacket. Thanks for dinner. Good luck with the lease. No one stopped me. The text started before I made it home. Natalie, we can still work this out. Mom, family comes first. Dad. I'm disappointed I didn't reply. A week passed in silence. The kind that hums. The kind that waits. Then one night after work, I noticed scratches near my lock. Easy to miss. I'd lived there 5 years. I knew every mark on that door. My stomach dropped. The next day, I installed a new deadbolt. 2 cameras, one in the hallway, one inside. I slept lightly for 2 nights. On the 3rd night, my phone buzzed at 2:37 a.m. Motion detected. I opened the app. Natalie stood outside my door, hood pulled up, a screwdriver glinting in her hand. And in that moment, I knew this wasn't about family anymore. It was about entitlement, and it was about to get ugly. The sound that woke me wasn't the phone itself. It was the vibration rattling against the nightstand, sharp and urgent, like something trying to claw its way into my sleep. My eyes opened before my brain caught up, heart already thudding. That split second where you don't know if you're safe or dreaming. I told myself it was nothing. A neighbor locked out. Someone drunk on the wrong floor. The building settling, pipes knocking, normal noises dressed up as fear. Then I opened the camera feed. Grainy black and white. Hallway lights blown out at the edges. And there, unmistakable, was Natalie. Her hood was pulled low. Hair shoved out at the sides like she'd thrown it on in a hurry. Her shoulders were hunched. Posture small, compressed. Like she knew she wasn't supposed to be there. A metallic glint caught the light as she moved her hand toward my locked and wide chest. Went tight. It felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. My hand started shaking so hard I had to brace my phone with both palms. My body wasn't waiting for permission anymore. It had flipped into another mode. I hit record, slid out of bed and stayed low, moving on instinct, not thought. I whispered into the phone as the dispatcher answered. "There's someone trying to break into my condo. I have video." Gave my address. She told me to stay inside. Officers were close, on the screen. Natalie worked the lock like she'd done it before. Like she expected it to give. Like she thought I wasn't home. And something inside me cracked. Not anger. Not fear exactly. Something colder. The last piece of denial snapping into place. This wasn't desperation. This was entitlement. Footsteps appeared on the camera feed first. 2 officers moving fast down the hallway. Natalie didn't see them until they were almost on top of her. "Ma'am, step back from the door." She jumped, spun, words tumbling over each other immediately. I forgot my keys. This is my sister's place." I stayed behind the door until one of the officers knocked. When I opened it, my legs felt like they might give out. I held up my phone, still recording. "That's her," I said. "That's my sister. And that's a screwdriver." The officer watched the playback. Natalie's face drained of color. ID requested. She tried to laugh it off. "This is a misunderstanding." I didn't say anything. They cuffed her in the hallway. Mark came running down the corridor in sweatpants, hair sticking up, panic written all over his face. "What's going on?" "She tried to break in," I said. He looked from me to the officer to Natalie. "She thought she still had a spare." "I never gave her one," I said. That he rubbed his face, didn't argue. Muttered something about a lawyer and followed them out. After the door closed, I locked the deadbolt and leaned against it. My cameras kept recording long after everything else stopped. I stared at nothing, completely emptied out. The next morning I called off work. I wanted everything documented before the story got rewritten for me. To the police station. I handed over the footage. They pulled the 911 audio. Gave me a case number. The officer said the video made things pretty straightforward. Home I backed everything up twice. Thumb drive. Cloud folder with a new password. Printed the incident report and filed it with my mortgage papers. Ownership, meat protection. My mom called first. "How could you do this to your sister?" "She tried to break into my home at 2 in the morning, I said. "I didn't do anything. You didn't have to call the police. She had a screwdriver in my lock. What exactly was I supposed to do?" Family handles things privately. Does privately mean pretending it didn't happen? Silenced. My dad called an hour later. "She made a mistake. Don't ruin her life over this." "I was asleep in my own home," I said. "I'm not apologizing for protecting it." He muttered something about me being cold. Texts poured in from relatives who hadn't checked in for years. "She didn't mean it. Drop the charges. She has a baby." I ignored every 1.2 days later. I looked up court records. They're public if you know where to look. Natalie had a small fraud charge from 5 years earlier. Deferred sentence. Probation. Fine paid. Nothing dramatic, but not nothing either. This time the judge had no patience. She pled guilty. 3 months. Permanent record. While she was inside, Mark sent a long message about stress, bills, daycare, life coming too fast. She was just trying to keep a roof over our kid's head. I read it twice. Saved it. Didn't respond. The consequences rolled on without my help. Lease penalties. A short-term rental at a higher rate. Mark carrying everything on a teacher's salary. Natalie unable to find work with a record point 3 months later. My mom told me they'd moved in with my parents. "That's between you and them," I said. She didn't like that answer. A month after Natalie was released, my dad stopped by to drop off misdirected mail. He looked older. Tired. "Your sister's having a rough time," he said. "She made her choices. She says you hate her." "I don't hate her," I said. "I'm just done being the person everyone leans on while calling me selfish." He nodded. Didn't argue. Left. Life went back to normal faster than I expected. And then my mom told me Natalie wanted to clear the air. Life didn't explode or dramatically reset after that. Just resumed that I went back to work. Started going to the gym again. Fixed the sticky window I'd been promising myself I'd deal with for 3 years. Painted the hallway wall properly instead of touching it up in patches. The days were quiet. Not lonely quiet. The kind that lets your shoulders drop without you realizing they were tense. Updates filtered in through the family grapevine whether I wanted them or not. Natalie got a part-time job at a daycare. Mark picked up extra tutoring hours. They found a smaller, older rental farther from the city. Cheaper. There's that I didn't reach out. Not out of anger. Out of finality. A year passed by then. Every wall in the condo had fresh paint. Both doors had new locks. The squeaky floorboard by the bedroom, the one I'd stepped around for years, was finally fixed. After all that time telling myself I'd get to it someday, I developed a routine without meaning to. Come home from work. Lock the deadbolt. Stand there for a second and listen to the quiet. No surprise visits. No guilt-laced calls. No explanations about why I wasn't selfish. The silence wasn't empty. It was steady. Later, my mom told me Natalie wanted to clear the air. I agreed on one condition. My home was off the table. No debates. No hypotheticals. No surprises. My mom said she understood. I didn't know it yet. But that conversation was the last illusion to fall. We met on a Saturday afternoon at my parents' house. Neutral ground. Natalie was already there when I arrived. Arms crossed tight. Chin lifted the way it always was when she felt cornered. Mark sat beside her, shoulders slumped, eyes fixed on the wood grain of the table like he wished he could disappear into it. I took the chair across from them. "All right," I said. "You wanted to talk." Natalie didn't ease into it. "You didn't have to call the cops. Family doesn't do that to each other. You tried to break into my home at 2:30 in the morning," I said. "That wasn't a family conversation. That was a crime." "I was desperate," she shot back. "You wouldn't listen. You left us no choice." "There was a choice," I said. "You just didn't like it." She rolled her eyes. "Do you have any idea how hard it is with a baby? With bills? We needed help." "You wanted a free house," I said. Mark flinched. "We deserved help," Natalie said, leaning forward. "You don't have kids. You don't understand what it's like to watch space go to waste while you're drowning." "Space I worked for," I said. "Space I paid for while you were laughing about how small it was years ago." "That was different," she snapped. "You're holding on to old stuff." "No," I said. "I'm holding on to reality." She stared at me, then leaned closer. "You ruined my record. You ruined my life." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. "You picked up the screwdriver. You showed up at my door. You made that choice. Not me." The silence that followed was thick and uncomfortable. Mark tried, quietly. "She just means it didn't have to go this far." "It went exactly as far as she pushed it," I said. "I'm not carrying that for her." Natalie's hands curled into fists. "One day you'll need help. Don't expect us to be there." "Understood." "Good. That way everything's clear." She blinked, thrown off. I don't think she expected that answer. "I hope you figure things out," I said. "But my home is off limits forever. No debates. No showing up. No surprises." Then I walked out. Why Mom tried after that. Family dinners, holidays, neutral conversations. I stayed consistent. If my home comes up even once, I'm leaving. Eventually she stopped asking. Life grew quiet again. Not lonely. Quiet. I spent weekends fixing things I'd put off for years. Replaced the sticky window. Painted the hallway properly. Bought cheap plants for the windowsill and somehow kept them alive. Graded my desk chair. Mounted a real shelf in the office. Got rid of the sagging couch and bought one that didn't dip in the middle. Little things. Ordinary things. A year later, my condo looked better than it ever had. Fresh paint. New locks. Solid floors. Why rituals stayed the same. Come home. Lock the deadbolt. Stand there for a second and listen. No surprise visits. No guilt trips. No calls about being selfish. The silence wasn't empty, IT was steady. I'd sit on the couch with the TV off, plants catching the afternoon light, the weight of the last year finally lifting from my shoulders. IT didn't feel like victory. Or revenge. Just boundaries that stayed where I put them. And peace. Real peace. Inside a home that was mine in every way that mattered.